Recording. There we go. All right. Well, thank you for attending our second meeting of this year. We couldn't meet last time, but I just want to give a brief recap of what we discussed back in January. And then I'll go over some of the survey results that I created for everyone to decide on a group name. And then also what would be the proper time to meet, like whether we should meet on a bi-weekly basis moving forward or on a monthly basis. And then we will kind of touch on some topics like the Gold Neighborhoods List grant, the leadership training topics, and then we'll get to our main part of the discussion, which is discussing an action item covering outreach strategies, some of the tangible products that the community has identified through this project, through the process and creating this action plan. The action plan outlines those deliverables like a community directory, a calendar, and then also developing outreach campaigns to spread the word to communities, keep people informed on what's going on with the events or resources that are available that people can utilize. All right, so going to our next slide, I will cover some of the survey results. Computer going slow. So some of the names that were provided in our January meeting are Kashmere Gardens Progressive Action Team to call our implementation team, the Kashmere Nickel Community Group, the KG Fifth Element Team, the Northeast Houston Community Group, the KG Fifth Action Team, the Collaboration Team, the High Five Team. Those were some of the suggestions, and then in that survey, I also included an other option if people had any other ideas. But out of the pool of participants, I believe we had like 9 people that participated in the survey. The Kashmere Gardens Progressive Action Team received the most votes. So that could be like a name that we could move forward and refer to this group as the Kashmere Gardens Progressive Action Team. And then on the second question, how often we should meet, a lot of votes went to monthly, so we can continue on meeting on the monthly basis. So in this case, we'll meet again in April. And the meetings, I mean, the centralized meeting, these are the main meetings that are being held to keep everyone informed on what's going on with Complete Communities. But there may be other special meetings or working group meetings that may branch off from these reoccurring meetings to cover specific action items. And tonight I have the action item that we will start discussing, and this which may lead to a meeting that we can schedule for a time outside of these reoccurring meetings. And will meeting at 6:30 p.m. on the third Tuesdays of the month work for you? Majority of the respondents select yes. And to review some of the main points from the last meeting, we had a couple of speakers. The first one was from Houston Public Works, Sarah Robinson, and she talked about the Protect Our Pipes campaign, how people can properly dispose waste such as oil, how to instead of putting it down the drains, like she talked about that and showed a video to folks, and you can watch the video actually through, I believe it's on the Houston Public Works YouTube page, but I can verify that. The next one, there was Juan Flores, who was the program manager with Houston Air Alliance Houston. He provided a presentation on the Community Air Monitoring Program, and which is an opportunity to work with some complete communities in installing air monitors. And through this program, there's funding available to install those monitors, and there will be a community engagement component with this if one of the complete communities is selected. And following that, thank you to Mr. Downey. There was just an application that needed to be submitted before February 12th on behalf of the community. I have not heard from Airlines Houston, but once I do, I will keep everyone posted on if Kashmere Gardens is selected to move forward with this program. But thank you, Mr. Downey, for taking care of the application and getting it submitted on time.
You're welcome. May I say one other thing about this air monitoring program? So this is the second time they've reached out to Kashmere Garden in 3 years. And the first time they reached out to us, we suggested that they connect with the principals at our schools, because you have to take care of your children, to maybe put a stationary, of course, monitors on the buildings, what have you, and the principals are willing to let this happen again. We still have the same principals basically in the feeder we had 3 years ago, which is great for HISD, but neither here nor there. But the thing is that there seems to be a lack of follow through with Air Alliance. So just want to point that out, that they, keep the community informed, whether we win or whether we lose. Let the community know.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Downey. Any questions about the community? Any other questions about the community air monitoring program? I also provided notes, so I covered some of the bullet points of it, but I also sent out in the presentation a copy of the presentation to this group in early February. But if you need another copy of that presentation that was provided in January, please let me know, and I'll send over a copy. But we also had a couple of LISC small grant virtual workshops, although these grants are provided through the Houston LISC organization. The planning department was holding some workshops to provide guidance, and we have Sasha Marshall, who is one of our planners on our team, that was hosting those workshops, and I will actually have a question following up about if anyone in the community is applying for a small grant, knowing that Trinity and Kashmere Gardens are goal neighborhoods. Yes, Mr. Downey.
The answer is yes. I'm going to be getting an application and yes, filling it out. This would be the third small grant that we would have gotten from LISC. They've been a great partner through the years, even when I went through the first T for T class. So yes, we will be applying, just letting you know.
Okay. Is it a project? Would you mind sharing, like, what is the proposal?
Yeah, the proposal would be for, we need to bring people in time, due time, for like National Night Out, something we do every year. So this would go toward bringing in not only setting up entertainment, but food, because we usually go in our pockets through the years to donate food, whether we're buying it in mass quantities from Costco or what have you. And it runs up into, the hundreds of dollars each time. And also working with the county to set up their tents and all, usually at Mickey Leland Park. So just letting you know that, yes, we will be. But this will not only be for National Night Out, we have Christmas party for the seniors. We also have the summer picnic and what have you. So not sure we can bring people together by June or July, but this will be for community events, and we can create events as well.
Okay. Yes, this will actually this relates very well to what we're going to discuss today, in getting the word out and utilizing ways of how we can um, spread information to people. So yeah, this is a great relation to what we're talking about tonight. Thank you for sharing, Mr. Downey.
Sure, and this won't be just the Kashmere Garden. Fifth Ward is involved here, can be included here. Trinity Houston Gardens can be involved here because we're not territorial. We have to work together, and we should work together.
Absolutely. Um, and before we go further, I just wanted to know. I'm sorry. If I got your name correctly, it's seven. Who's calling from their phone? What's your name again? I'm sorry, I didn't get it fully, but it's Mr. Morris. I just wanted to make sure that we capture anyone who is new to our group. We probably have been in communication, but I just wanted to stop and just acknowledge anyone who has been, if someone has attended for the first time.
Devontae, it may be helpful to give the unmuting instructions.
Oh yes, absolutely. Thank you. If you would like to unmute, press *6.
It's Book of Mormon.
Thank you. With what organization?
With Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
All right. So with that said, what about the list grant small? Yeah. So that's our item. I guess if we have more people come in, we can always go back to the list small grant as we'll talk about our action item today. All right, and actually our second item is to discuss leadership training topics. In general, there may be opportunities for leadership training. Mr. Downey, I believe you mentioned one leadership training workshop through LISC. Sorry, to correct me, it's the Leaders to Lead. I'm sorry, repeat that again.
T for T. T for T. T, the number 4, T. Training for trainers.
Training for trainers. Thank you. And those are, and that is one way of opportunity for people to acquire the leadership skills. One of the other ways that we have done in the past are holding workshops or like sessions as part of what we call Complete Communities University. And the first one was held during the pilot round, so we were engaged with the first 5 complete communities, and there will we would. It's in discussion of like holding it again for to expand, of course, to the newer 5 complete communities. And in general, what are some of the leadership topics that you would like to talk about, or would you like to cover? Like I could give a few examples. Fundraising is one of the topics that was brought up at the last Complete Communities University event. What are other things that you would like to learn, or what would benefit the community? What would the community like to know about?
I think personally, I think empowering residents is very important. With all the food and water giveaway, the one thing that's missing a strong component is education, is information. Numbers to maybe the list of plumbers, list of insurance companies, list of whatever. When things happen, people don't know where to turn, and they turn to their grassroots leaders. and they ask for information, and they do this on a daily basis every day, whether there's a pandemic or not. And we're happy to provide the information, but my point is, give people resources and information where it empowers them and educates them to be able to help themselves more.
Thank you for that suggestion. Any other ideas? Any other leadership topics that you would like to know about or would you like to have covered? Oh, thank you, Yoletta. Ms. Yoletta.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, thank you for joining us. We were just we just started not too long ago, but we were just going through a couple of items, but we haven't gotten to like the main discussion of tonight. But right now we're talking about potential leadership topics for a potential training sessions that could be held in the future for all the complete communities. And if there's something that you would like to have in a topic that you have in mind that you would like to be a part of the discussion, or some skills that people would like to learn more of, what are some of those ideas?
I heard the comments that Mr. Downey made, and I agree that there should be some type of emergency management type of leadership training that can take place so that when various emergencies, especially those that are unexpected, occur within our communities, we have a process, or there is a process established that we can access and people can begin to get some remedy, no matter what it is. This one was a winter storm. My biggest concern is the one, because the Port of Houston is getting so large, if there is one of those ships that has an overflow and a lot of chemicals waste, is there some type of code or whatever that can be sent out to the communities for environmental, as it relates to the smell and et cetera that will be coming from the Port of Houston towards our communities? There are a lot of environmental issues along with natural disasters that we need to look at and prepare and have some type of emergency management plan in place for our community, so residents won't be confused about what to do, where to go, and how to find things. It will kind of be at their fingertips. So if some type of leadership training can be done on that topic, which connects to what Mr. Downey said, I would be excited about that, because that would be beneficial to all of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we could probably, Devontae, also have a topic around organizing and facilitating effective meetings.
Good one. Good. Okay. Yes, I think we have, Lynn, was that one of our topics that we held in the past for Complete Communities University?
Yes, it has been, but that seems to be one of the topics that's asked for often, so we definitely will be looking into that.
Any other ideas, topics, important topics to cover? If you have any ideas, you can also put in the chat your thoughts. Also send me an email anytime if you like, whatever thoughts come to mind. Feel free to send me an email. These things are helpful to inform us about, what needs to be addressed, what needs to be covered, how we can help people to, do things like holding effective meetings. Like, what are some of the components that the community would like to learn? But thank you for the feedback. So now we can move on to our next item. This was voted as, this received the most votes based on a survey collected in January, dealing with public outreach, and this is within the community leadership and advocacy section of the Kashmere Gardens Action Plan. The goal area is to establish, to have a collaborative and cohesive community, and the specific action is to improve public outreach strategies, communication within the community and with community partners, and create a community directory. And some of the action steps involves developing a bilingual outreach campaign, community directory, and calendar. And this is found within page 18 of your Kashmere Gardens Complete Communities Action Plan. And some of the questions that I have outlined to open the floor is reviewing, like, what are some of the existing outreach strategies and communication methods that have been taking place. So I will start off with that.
Well, one thing that the Kashmere Garden Super Neighborhood does, not only Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, but also robo-dialing people, robocalls where there's important information that is time sensitive, giving people a chance to be involved in the resource or services. Also, one of the things that we're doing is, and I was doing this and then COVID hit, periodically go to churches, not necessarily my church, just go around to different churches in the community and share the information of what is going on around that facility, that structure, and getting people to try to spread the word. But what I have done in the meantime is make sure all pastors are on emails of, when I say all pastors, all the ones that I know of 6 or 7 or 8, getting word out to them and asking them to share the information as well. So that's what presently is going on in the community. And of course, word of mouth. There's nothing, internet will never beat that in the community, but also working on that as well.
So what I've heard is, as an asset are the churches. The churches are the great locations, centralized locations to disseminate information to residents. And then also you mentioned robocalls as in one method.
And one other thing, asking principals to reach out to the parents and guardians. So when we get information, please share. And some of the principals inside the Kashmere Feeder say they do share this with the parents of important information, because, you know, they have the masses there, you know, so they can reach a lot more people than you can. So just trying to get those different entities and institutions to help the community be stronger.
Yes.
Some existing outreach strategies that I think can be developed will be to have a variety of what they call house meetings. Usually people talk very openly in small group meetings where you have maybe 10 or 15 or less people that are scheduled for, and they are in a Zoom format in a meeting, and you ask a couple of questions and have community people provide input as it relates to what are the action steps and what do you want to do and how can you support and what can you do to have reach your neighbors or the residents that you hang out with or your family members. So to me, developing a calendar of maybe small house meetings that can be implemented or led by some of the people in the lead people on the in the committee or the Complete Communities group. They work together and decide, you know, what type of meetings, questions they want to ask, and then let them reach out to people, and then let everyone reach one and bring more people in. Because one of the things that we don't have a lot of are the interpersonal relationships that we have missed because of the pandemic. And people don't have a problem talking, but coming together in that format will provide an opportunity for people to build a relationship, share information, and be engaged in participating in community outreach and civic engagement. as it relates to what strategies need to be implemented from a grassroots community process. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I have a question going back to what you said, Mr. Downey, about reaching the parents with the schools and how to disseminate the information to the parents. One of the things is reaching out to the schools in a way, and you know, I have what I have reached out to are the leaders of the schools, like the principals, and I try to get the wraparound specialists. But how to like connect with the parents in a way of getting them, you know, hearing more of their voices in multiple ways. It's especially when to address many topics about increasing parental engagement under the educational section. You know, those are things that is important to reach out to these parents of the students and really hear from them.
My purpose of reaching out to the schools is twofold. Get information out to people, yes, but also schools have a bilingual component with these communities of ours that are changing demographically. You know, the school sends out their calls in 2 languages. So that's one of the reasons I reach out to the school component, because you can reach the masses that way in another culture that I can't speak Spanish, you know, so that's the purpose.
And the Kashmere Gardens feeder patterns, are those continuously in a, you know, being held on a monthly basis?
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Williams, can you mute? Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry.
I think Mr. Williams is trying to chime in, but he has a lot of background noise.
Oh, I see. Mr. Williams. Yes, if you are experiencing audio issues, you could try to maybe log in and X out and then enter back in, or you can write in the comment section. But
okay, so what was the question? It kind of faded out there for just a second, and I didn't hear the question.
Understood. Yeah, I was just going back to a comment that Mr. Downey was stating about engaging with the parents and working with these institutions. But it's like really just directing, like, who am I trying to reach the parents, and, you know, that's the goal, and, you know, sharing information. But it's getting like who is the proper point of contact through these institutions and how they disseminate the information in the way to the parents. And Mr. Downey was mentioning of how, you know, they do the bilingual, there's a bilingual outreach component in how they share the information with the parents and of these students.
Right. Yeah, yes. Correct. I mean, so you mentioned wraparound specialists, and that is a key point of contact because they actually go out and talk to families. They don't just, I mean, they represent students, but their main function is to not only dig into what problems students are having, but to take that investigation to the parents, the home, and, you know, that's how they try to solve some of these student problems. And also that's how they're able to determine if there are any organizations that can also provide help to various families. So, you know, reaching out to a wraparound specialist, number one, reaching out to the PTA/PTO organizations, number two. And we also have the Kashmere Feeder Pattern Community Council, and we're trying to, so the virus has really thrown a loop in our approach, but what our approach is to try to bring together the administrative teams from the schools to dialogue with parents and community members. And so that's our primary focus. And so that's another avenue as well to try to get information out. But as Keith really talked about, some of these issues can be and are being communicated via the robocalls from each school. And so that's a key component for us in our community, because the robocall can go out, and most of the principals, if it's something that's directly affecting the community, they know that it affects their campuses as well, and they are willing to send out a robocall which addresses each student's parents or family at home.
Okay. Thank you. It kind of leads us to this other question about, so we mentioned like schools, church groups, like these are assets, and then the civic clubs as the community, as for like information distribution, and then existing events like the National Night Out, where that can also take, where you can, information can be shared through those those types of events like National Night Out. And then it seemed like robocalls, like from my understanding, is like a very effective method in really reaching out to community members, and then so we kind of cover the assets, but are there like any barriers in the process that should be addressed? Barriers in communication that needed to, any barriers or like things or obstacles that are any challenges that you have experienced?
Our primary barriers are probably common to most of these kinds of calls for action, and that is participation. Or if you say non-participation, that's a huge barrier. And we just try all kinds of different ways to get around that, but that's a primary barrier right there. Sometimes parents, especially if they have more than one student, and in different schools, for instance, they're at a point where they have to sort of pick and choose, whose program are they going to? So somebody has to get left out sometimes. That's kind of stuff we run into, that kind of barriers. And then sometimes the other barriers are simply, trying to create the need for people to be involved, trying to communicate to them clearly how their participation is important to solving community problems.
Yes, increasing participation. Yes, that is definitely a key component in really getting people out there and really emphasizing the importance of their attendance and their voices, and how that can really resonate, how impactful it can be to, to bring change, to increase dialogue is really important. Which kind of brings us to our some of the opportunities, the strategies that were identified by the community, having these bilingual outreach campaigns. And starting with that, there are multiple outreach campaigns that have been identified in the plan, whether it's depending on the topic at hand. Like, I'll give a few examples. There was one about addressing illegal dumping, how to get the word out on how people can properly dispose waste, or report it 311 if they see some illegal dumping. How to develop campaigns on that, to keep the community, for beautification, promote that. The second one is about the community directory. This is a directory that anyone can access, that pretty much has all the information that they have requested, or something that they can rely on for resources. What are some of the things that people will find helpful in that directory to have for something that people can not only access online, but it could be something that people can get a physical copy of. Those are things I'm just throwing out. But that's another possibility, is exploring, creating a community directory. And then there is also the community calendar, having a centralized calendar of events, and then going back to what Ms. Yoletta was talking about, like with the housing, the housing meetings, those meetings, like meetings that people can find on those community calendars and see, like, oh, this is the meeting that's taking place on this date. That's also something that can be explored. So those are three things, and I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Devontae, one of the barriers also is everyone does not speak English in our communities. And when information is on flyers, very seldom, and Kashmere is as bad as this as others, but I try to be sensitive. Whenever I see something in Spanish and in English, I try to post both on social media, and I try to send both to the community, because it's we don't want any Spanish speaking residents to feel left out. And when we've gotten feedback from someone we used to work with, that is, the people, African Americans, we may not be sensitive enough to the Hispanic community, of trying to include them. And we must be inclusive of all residents that we have, as much as we can, but nobody's perfect.
A great way to do that is to really having more of that representation in these meetings. We definitely would like to hear the voices of people, of bilingual speakers, the Spanish speaking speakers. We would like to hear their voices, and have them come into these meetings, and that way we can have more of increased dialogue about the needs of how we can engage with that population, which is why a key component was identified is to have these bilingual outreach campaigns, whichever this outreach campaign may be about, but to also make it inclusive, that everyone can be informed, and so people can be informed about illegal dumping, and you can report this to 311, or and so on. And then having that community directory and a community calendar, how we can make it accessible to people to everyone, people of all ages and language, and so on. So those are three possibilities, and I brought the reason why I'm bringing this up tonight is to develop like a kind of like a roadmap where we can go from here, and to have a further discussion on break this apart in a way of like scheduling a meeting to talk about one of the three things. We can start with talking about like how we can develop a community calendar. What would that look like? Where can it be accessed? Same with the community directory. or which outreach campaign, there's like a going off the action plan. I do not have it in front of me, but I know there are various examples of outreach campaigns that the community has identified, some of the examples in the action plan. So we can tackle that in the future meeting. But from what I was hearing, I was, hearing more of community calendar, that could be something to start off with, and then really as a way that can be managed by the community. It doesn't, there's a calendar that is, the community can really take full advantage of, and they can put the events that they would like to spread the word about, whether it's like these house committee meetings that people would like to attend. If there's events like the SEER meeting tonight, having that on there, we can talk about that. We can have a further discussion to tackle that. So
I like these. I like what you're saying, Devontae. I like looking at this and the calendar, the directory, and the bilingual outreach campaign. I think all three are very important, and it will make the community more cohesive. And I like what the doctor was saying too about house meetings, because sometimes everybody doesn't like being in a large forum, but they will open up in a small group. So I think that it's very important. It's like I'll have all of the above, because the community, and not me, but the community will, because it's important that we empower these communities, not just give them donations. They need more than that to be strong communities. And people need resources and help. And yes, they need these boxes of food and what have you, but what else are you giving them to go along with that to be able to help themselves in the long run? Because we need sustainability.
Can I add a statement or two as it relates to barriers and as it relates to the comments that's been made? One of the things as it relates to bilingual outreach campaigns, one of the things that we are not good at doing, and I think we could do better at, is actually going to Hispanic churches and reaching out to congregations in the Hispanic churches to begin to identify who are the church leaders there that can help us navigate through the communities, to even be a person that will work with us to maybe help interpret as we go through the communities, because in both the Fifth Ward and the Kashmere Garden communities, there are a few Spanish churches. They may be small, but there are a few Spanish churches that the members of the community go to, and we overlook that particular group of people in that location. Also, another location is washaterias and stores, because people go and wash their clothes. Everybody doesn't have a washing machine and dryer at home, so they're going somewhere. We just don't know where that somewhere is. But that is a gathering place where community people go to get, and they begin to talk and they congregate, and we begin to have communications with them. So as we begin to reach out to our bilingual residents and even our African residents, because I know in the Fifth Ward community, African residents, that population is growing, and it seems to be overflowing in the Kashmere Garden community. And all of us are speaking of a variety of different languages, and we don't tend to open our eyes to look at where are they hanging out? Where do they go to church? Where do they do their socialization in small groups because of the pandemic? So if we would look at maybe doing some brainstorming, and as individuals maybe bring to the table 2 or 3 locations that we can begin to put together, that would help even in developing the community directory, because you're doing research to really find out where you're hanging out. So how we can identify some leaders that will help us with these language barriers that we have. And then as we begin to do the community calendar, then we'll know what's happening with all people in the community, not just a small segment of people in the community. So they all kind of interact with one another. But I think we need to kind of just look at, what can I do, Jane McCullough do, to go and reach about 5 or 6 Hispanics, or 5 or 6 other bilingual people within my community to say, okay, we want you to be involved. This is what we need to do. So how can we get you engaged and what can we do? So that's just my thought as it relates to barriers and moving forward with what we talked about, because I agree with everything that's been said.
And that point, that's a great point. And then that goes back to what you mentioned a little earlier, Devontae, and that is even on these kinds of committees that we have formed, we need to make an effort to ensure that these kinds of efforts reflect the community, you know, where they're being conducted, where they're being done, and you can't make anybody join this effort, but we can go out of our way to invite people and try to get them in on the conversation. And from that standpoint, I think we begin to take some of those barriers down and understand other points of view as well, without just guessing at what some residents are thinking and we don't really know.
Yes, and yeah, this is really helpful to, especially outlining how all of these three products there really are interrelated in multiple ways, and we could really start off with starting tonight, really establishing, you know, kind of gradually building this working group for the community leadership and advocacy group. And really tackling these three areas. And prior to the second meeting, we can identify some organizations that we can reach out to. We can dive deeper into, you know, what are some strategies to whatever that may be. You know, what this outreach campaign can be about. We can develop an outreach campaign on a particular topic. We could start there. Those are just some ideas. What do you think about that? That's something that,
I think it's a good idea. I think it's a very good idea.
Is that something that for the next meeting, which I can send out a poll to people, like we can have this is a meeting that would take place outside of our you know, usual meetings, and if that is and if you all can help you know, bring more people to the table to these meetings, and we can have more dialogue of, you know, what can be developed out of this action step.
Yeah, please allow us to do that. I mean, I'm saying us, but if others are willing to do that, yes, I'm for that, to bring more people in so we can know what's on their minds, so they can have input in this.
Another idea that I'd like to suggest and to recommend is that I did talk about information overload. Sometimes when we talk about the Complete Communities initiative, people don't really understand what that means. They have an idea what it means. Those of us who have been a part of these meetings and attending the meetings over the years and over the year, we kind of know what it's all about. But if we could come up with some little catchy elevator speech that would help people to really simplify the information, to say, we need your input at this Complete Communities meeting to do 1, 2, 3 things, and to get that information sharp. And so we can talk about it in a conversation where we're not turning people off and beginning to give a long explanation about what the Complete Communities is all about. For example, if we're just talking about these 3 action steps, well, the Complete Communities we want to actually begin to figure out how we can reach our bilingual community. We want to develop a directory, a calendar. I don't know what those words should be, but it just needs to be something that's a little tight, similar to an elevator speech that we can communicate to people, because information overload, people don't want to read, and they don't want to read a whole lot of stuff. And then because the digital divide is very real, a lot of people don't really get on the computers to see what the meetings are about. And if they are on they do get on the communities to see what the meetings are about, a lot of them don't even have access to deal with a Zoom meeting. They may have to do a phone call, a Zoom phone call, or etc. So I just like to throw those comments in that conversation as we all begin to dialogue how we can begin to do better in reaching our community.
I totally agree with her. We have to make it short and sweet to people, because just saying complete community, sometimes they don't feel like they may not feel like they're included. So, but just getting them to understand, in other words, speaking the language that they understand, which is English, true enough. But like she's saying, don't make it long and drawn out, and don't give them a chance. Like Ken said also, was to pique their interest. You know, a lot of times people need things they don't know they need. So, you know, let them know that this is a life enhancer, not something to be turned off about.
And better disseminate information and better share and present information to community members. So thank you. And thank you, Lynn, for making note of that point in the comments section. Would you like to say anything, Lynn, about this? It really helps us inform us about, you know, how we can, you know, better, you know, inform people even through our newsletters, you know. So I really find that helpful.
I think this has been a great discussion, and I like the way, Devontae, that this can segue into the working group, and with a little bit of discussion and formulating a plan. I think this group can start pretty quickly on putting these thoughts and ideas into action, so that we spread the word, get more involvement from the community, share information, and keep moving. This was a great discussion.
By all means, this was a very good meeting tonight. Took a little time for everybody to come together, but that's life. But I think it was a great meeting, great input, great comments, and like Ms. Henson said, let's move forward.
Okay. Yes, and moving forward, yeah, I'll set that meeting. I will send out follow-up email, and really formulating first a list, like documenting the organizations that we can reach out to, and if you all can help us you know, if you all can reach out to those organizations that you have in mind, so that we can get some representatives at these meetings, that'll be wonderful. But I will send out a follow-up meeting with some of the action steps that we can follow. One of the things that I would like to make note of before we end today's meeting are a few items that I want to make a note of for some of the coming events. Speaking of outreach, that we can really spread the word to the community. The first one. The first one, Designing for Impact. This is an upcoming workshop hosted by the AIA, the ARC. Lindsay, if you can, or Krista, if you can please assist me on this, because I don't talk about, either explain it for me, please. The AIA,
Yeah.
Architect.
American Institute of Architects.
American Institute of Architects. Thank you, Mr. Downey.
So, is Krista on? I can go ahead and take it. So the American Institute of Architects, in partnership with HNOMA and the City of Houston, we're hosting design charrettes in a community workshop, and we're trying to encourage community-led design efforts. So we need residents and stakeholders to join us on April 10th for the community engagement workshop. Everything will be virtual. We'll be hosting these on Zoom. And then the design teams will come back and present their results to us on April 24th. The charrettes will be focusing on building hubs and corridors and also implementing strategies from your action plans. So if you have not already, please sign up using the link on AIE Houston, and I'll also drop that in the chat. But pass it on to any residents that you know would be interested. We need to hear all voices, any stakeholders, any developers, anyone that you think would be beneficial to have at the table and talking with these designers who have donated their time and talent to the complete communities.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any questions on that?
That's an example of a whole nother educational piece to inform the community about, so that they will be able to come and participate in the community engagement workshop and begin to be able to share. So when you begin to talk about building hubs and corridors, what does that mean to a regular community resident? So are we going to do something to maybe pre-workshop to help people to even want to register for the workshop based upon what the title is and based upon who's putting it together? I mean, to me, those are the barriers that we have when we begin to look at authentic community engagement. We don't take the time to say, okay, this is what we want to do, but now how are we going to really reach out people besides doing a registration work? A registration link, and then we're going to talk about community engagement, and then we want community to come in. But you got to do some legwork before. So I think we need to challenge ourselves to kind of really do some pre-work before this date. And I know that's not a lot of time to begin to get people to understand what this whole Design for Impact is and why it's important for them to attend and why it's important for their voice to be heard. And I'm going to
we echo all. No, I totally agree with you and echo all those sentiments. On February 2nd, we actually held a pre-panel discussion with 3 design experts who kind of deal with community-led design or those who've worked in complete communities. And we also had information on what a hub and corridor is and what the community workshop will entail. So we can pass the link of that recording of the panel. It was advertised through the complete communities, but for anyone who missed it, and for anyone who's interested, we can pass the link of that recording so they can watch it as a precursor and be able to learn and feel excited about engaging in this process.
I was trying to get myself off of mute and I couldn't come off mute. Devontae, definitely, it's important to the community to get involved, to understand what they're getting involved in also. So yes, I agree with the doctor on that. And I believe that I think it's something that community members would be interested in, but given the opportunity. But like she's saying, do the pre-leg work as well, getting them to understand what they're joining into. And it's something that will help the community, but help them as well. Because one thing people always ask, how does that help me? How will that help my family? So showing them how it will enhance their family, strengthen their family, empower them and the people around them, then I think that it's all for that in strengthening their community by design. And they will take part in that design of shaping their community, because this is what we asked for decades, to be sitting at the table. When you're at the table now, you have a chance to be there. So this is, your input is very important.
Can I ask a question? Devontae, does your office have the opportunity to take that training that was done on February 3rd that introduced the community to these designers and yada, 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 yada? Do you have the capacity within your office to actually take that information and put it in neighborhood friendly bites small bites of information so that we can disseminate it to our community so that we can begin to get them engaged in knowing what it is and what this process is, because it seems like it's something that's going to really impact the communities. And if they're spending this kind of money, we're pulling all these people together, it's definitely going to have an impact. So is it possible for you to pull together people in your office or from your standpoint to kind of give us small bites of information so that we can disseminate that and understand it and circulate it to increase participation in this workshop?
I will actually direct this to Krista Stoneham with the Mayor's Office of Complete Communities. Yes.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Devontae. So I absolutely hear you about your feedback in terms of having like a pre-meeting just to introduce everyone and, you know, just explain what is architectural design. I will definitely take that back to the office tomorrow. Try to give me till the end of this week. I can look into it, but I need to bring in the other members of the team just to be sure that we can, you know, look at the schedule and whatnot. But definitely, I don't mind looking into that because I think we could do something quickly just to kind of show, you know, what is an asset with asset mapping, kind of just talking about what does that look like on a corridor, maybe. But we can also share the video that was recorded, but just wanted to say that I heard you, and I think that we can definitely look into it, and I'll get back to you about that. Well, I'll get with Devontae and the rest of the team.
Thank you, Krista, and thank you, Lindsay Williams, who is a planner working with the Sunnyside Complete Communities, and then Sasha Marshall as well is also a planner who is working with near North Side and 3rd Ward. And Lynn Henson, who is our manager, and then Jennifer Oslin, who is our assistant director of the Planning Development Department. Thank you. One other thing that I would like to mention, again, letstalkhouston.org, and also increasing the word about this engagement platform that we would like people to use. This is also a great site to go for where we will post information such as the 50/50 Parks Partner Survey for Tuffley Park. Previously, sessions were being held at some of the meetings like the Kashmere Garden Super Neighborhood meeting and the 5th Ward Super Neighborhood meeting. And the survey has been extended to the end of this month. And then this is the link that is provided in front of you, but it's also provided on letstalkhouston.org. And Kashmere Gardens has its Complete Communities page, and that's where we would appreciate comments or feedback on various initiatives. But I would recommend that you go on there and take the survey, and that's all I have for tonight. But again, thank you. This was a very great discussion. Yes, Mr. Downey.
Mm-hmm. I want to thank everybody for being on the call. Great input, great meeting, great facilitating. Also, any survey, because everybody wants a survey right now, whether it's U of H, TSU, City, whatever, Let's Talk Houston. Everybody's doing a survey. Very few times do you give back the information. It's a lot of input, but very, very few organizations do the output. Community members are also interested in, and they asked for this quite a bit. What are my neighbors saying? So going forward, I think it's very important on all of these surveys, let people know what people around them are saying, because they want to know other people's opinion as well as their own, that you know, when you see what they chose, if they feel they're being listened to. And so this is a part of engagement. But very few entities, whether it be with any of these research, if you notice, will ever give people out back the information of what they've said and what their community has said.
Understood. What would be the best method to show those results? Is it like on these websites, and then we can direct people to those links, or direct them to the leaders to disseminate to the members?
Well, one point about when she said that sometimes too much information at one time can be a problem. So maybe a little bit here and a little bit there about topics or questions. This is what the community has said about, just like you kind of on this call, but letting people know what is the output information going out. This is what your people, you and your community people are saying.
To add to that, one of the ways that you can disseminate that information is the same way that you did the 50-50 Park Partnership. When you actually came to the super neighborhoods of Fifth Ward and the super neighborhood in Kashmere Garden, and you introduced the 50-50 Park process. You can come back to those super neighborhood meetings and say, these are the results of the survey. This is what the community has come up with. And to build upon that, that is also something that the city could do, and especially doing the Complete Communities Initiative with this little project that y'all have, designing hubs and corridors. Why wasn't this brought to the various super neighborhood meetings so that small little workshops could be held in the super neighborhood Kashmere, super neighborhood and Fifth Ward, so people could get engaged, ask questions, and learn more about what's going on, as opposed to finding out stuff and it's like, so what is all this about? When did this happen? I think we really need to spend a little bit more time on the front end of figuring out how to really get people engaged and communities engaged. And Devontae, that process that you all developed with the park, 50-50 Park, I don't know who came up with that idea. We're going to both of the super neighborhoods and talking and having that presentation and then asking those questions. That was very, very good, because we had an opportunity to get up close and personal, understand, ask questions. Nobody felt intimidated. And I mean, there were questions asked. So, you know, disseminate the survey information there and use that as possibly a model to, when you're going forward, to educate our communities about what y'all doing and what y'all want to do, so we won't be in the dark. I have to get off of my soap stand.
Thank you for that. That's really important to utilize all of these meetings and to really spread the word and beyond, you know, the survey and collecting input, but coming back to them and share the findings. That's also another important factor. So thank you for that comment. Any questions for tonight? Any other questions or comments that you have? This again has been a great discussion, and even though, like, yes, even with a small group of people, you know, stuff can still be done out of this meeting. So it was still a great meeting, and I appreciate all the comments that you have done, regardless of the size of the meeting. The goal is to really just take action, you know, just really find ways to make progress, regardless of who is present. But thank you all for joining tonight's meeting, and I will follow up with the email outlining the next steps. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you. Everybody be safe. Night.
Take care.
Good night.